Advocate Anuradha, legal consultant and at Lexis and Company. So today we will be talking about First Information Report (FIR) under CRPC. Section 154 of Criminal Procedure Code. It talks about FIR. Word FIR, though, is not defined in CRPC anywhere, but still it is an information which is first in point of time and followed by an investigation, as it was held in the case of Lalita Kumari versus State of UP 2014 case. Section 154, Clause 1. It lays down the procedure for lodging of FIR. As per this clause, FIR can be given orally or in writing. If it is given orally, then it shall be reduced into writing by the police officer himself or under his direction by any other police officer. Then it shall be read over to the informant so that he may suggest corrections if needed, and then it shall be signed by the informant. Next, Section 154, Clause 2 talks about the copy of information shall be given free of cost to the informant. Section 154, Clause 3, it says that if police officer refuses to lodge FIR, then the informant has the remedy to send the written application to the superintendent of police, who shall investigate either himself or he shall direct any subordinate to do so, and he shall have all the powers of an SHO. So let's talk about the purpose of FIR. First of all, the purpose of FIR is to set the criminal law in motion, to inform the police in order to make him to proceed to the spot and take suitable steps, to inform the magistrates about the offense reported at the police station, to safeguard the accused against any subsequent violation. So, first information report is that information which is given to the police officer first in point of time. However, every sort of information is not covered under FIR. It is not necessary that such information that is first in point of time is necessary to be an FIR. It is necessary that such information must relate to the commission of cognizable offense. Once the information has been given to the police officer relating to cognizable offense, he is duty bound to lodge FIR. Thereupon, he has to decide whether he will investigate or not under Section 157 proviso. So, whatever the police officer decides, he has to send the occurrence report. This occurrence report is not mentioned directly, but occurrence report is covered under Section 157, Clause 1. So, whatever the police officer decides, he has to send the occurrence report to the magistrate under Section 157, Clause 1. But if he decides not to investigate, then what? Then the magistrate may exercise his powers under Section 159. If police officer decides to investigate, then there is no application of Section 159. It will not be required then. So, whether a police officer is duty bound to register an FIR, this question arises. So, this issue, whether a police officer is bound to register an FIR or not, was first raised in the case of Lalita versus State of UP. So, Supreme Court, while deciding this issue, referred to its earlier decision also. These decisions were in the case of State of Haryana versus Bhajanlal and Ramesh Kumar versus NCT Delhi 2006 Supreme Court. So, in these above mentioned cases, court laid down certain guidelines regarding FIR. So, what are these guidelines now? First of all, registration of FIR is mandatory under Section 154. If only if the information discloses the commission of cognizable offense. Secondly, FIR must be registered in the FIR register or book notified by the state government, and substance of such information is also to be mentioned in the general or station diary. So, the expression information used under Section 154 Clause 1 is not qualified by any prefix Like you'll read in section 41, clause 1, subclause B, that the prefixes added to the word information are reasonable, credible. So there is no such qualification, no such prefix added to section 154 clause 1. The word information is used as it is information. So this non qualification is for the reason that the police officer should not refuse to record any information relating to the commission of a cognizable offense, right? uh, he should not refuse on the ground that he is not satisfied about the reasonableness or credibility of the information. So, if the information received does not disclose the commission of the cognizable offense, then what? Then preliminary inquiry can be conducted as to ascertain the nature of the offense. Ascertain the nature of the offense means that whether it is a cognizable offense or a non-cognizable offense. So, if the information received by the police officer does not discloses the nature of the offense, then preliminary inquiry can be conducted as to ascertain the nature of the offense. But preliminary inquiry must be made. It is mandatory to be made in the following cases, which I am right now mentioning. First of all, matrimonial offenses. Secondly, corruption cases, medical negligence, commercial cases, and where there was an inordinate delay in lodging FIR. So these 5 cases are where preliminary inquiry must be made. Next, a preliminary inquiry should be made in 7 days to protect the right of the complainant and the accused. This 7 days time can be extended, can now be extended to 15 days and 6 weeks further if there is an exceptional case. So, what was the observation made by the court in the case that I mentioned? In the case of Ramesh Kumari versus NCT Delhi. So, the observation made by the court was a duly signed FIR under section 154 and the FIR which is not so recorded covered under the word otherwise used under section 157. So these are the two kinds of FIR that are contemplated by the Code of Criminal Procedure. I'm repeating it again. What are the two kinds of FIR as per the code? Duly signed FIR under section 154, the information which is covered under section 154, and secondly, which is not so recorded and covered under the word otherwise. Otherwise word you will find under section 157. Okay. And it further observed that the registration of FIR is mandatory, but arrest of accused on such FIR is not at all necessary. So the next topic that we will be covering under the first information report is the evidentiary value of FIR. So if let's talk about the evidentiary value of FIR under 3 heads. First, witness with regard to victim and with regard to the accused. With regard to witness, the first information report can be used to corroborate as per section 157 of Indian Evidence Act. Contradiction can also be done as per section 145 of Indian Evidence Act. Also, the witnesses are also allowed to refresh their memory under section 159 of Indian Evidence Act. Now, with respect to the victim, the evidentiary value of FIR is as follows. Always, the victim always appear as a prosecution witness. So, corroboration can also be done. Refreshing memory can also be done. If victim dies, then what? Then FIR will be used as dying declaration, and it is substantive piece of evidence upon which conviction can be based. Now, Section 32 of Indian Evidence Act, Section 32 of Indian Evidence Act talks about this dying declaration part. With respect to the accused, the evidentiary value of FIR I'm talking about. If FIR is lodged by an accused, then it is confessional FIR. Accused never appears as a defense witness except under section 315 of Criminal Procedure Code. If accused does not come as a witness, then no corroboration, no contradiction, and no refreshing memory. Let's talk about confession now. So you might have heard about the Pangla Narayan Swamy versus Emperor case. It is a leading judgment in this area. It is a Privy Council case, and Lord Etkin defined confession here. He defined confession as either direct or other incriminating facts that are given, statements before or after investigation given to the police officer. This is as per section 25 of Indian Evidence Act. But under section 162 CRPC, confession means statements during investigation. So, evidentiary value of FIR. Evidentiary value of FIR is far greater than any other statement recorded by the police in the course of investigation. So, considering its importance, criminal procedure code provides adequate safeguards to ensure its accuracy. Obviously, accuracy is to be ensured because, as we have already studied, that conviction can be based upon this information. So, obviously, accuracy is to be ensured. For example, recording of FIR in the same language of the informant, reading over to him again, etc. Any person who has knowledge about the commission of a cognizable offense may register FIR with the police officer. Such person can be witness, victim, family member of the victim, and by the accused himself. Now, it is settled law. What is settled law? That FIR is not a substantive piece of evidence. It is only an earliest information regarding the occurrence of the offense. Witness who filed an FIR may be an eyewitness or hearsay, though it is not a substantive piece of evidence, but it can be used for corroboration. Section 157 of Indian Evidence Act, I've already talked about. Or contradiction also, Section 145 of Indian Evidence Act. And he can use it for refreshing memory as well, as per Section 159 of Indian Evidence Act. If such informant is called as a witness at the time of trial. So these three options are available only when informant is called as a witness at the time of the trial. It may, however, be relevant under Section 6 as a fact in the same transaction of Indian Evidence Act. You might have heard about res geste under the concept covered under Section 6 of Indian Evidence Act. So this FIR may also be relevant under Section 6 or under Section 9 of Indian Evidence Act that fixes the time and place of the occurrence, also establishing the identities of the parties. Now, if FIR is lodged by victim, who always appears as a prosecution witness, it can be used under Section 145, 157, 159, Section 6, 8, 9. These all sections of Indian Evidence Act. I'm repeating it again. Sections 145, 157, 159, 6, 8, 9 of Indian Evidence Act. But if victim dies, as I've already told you about, it can be used as a dying declaration, which is then a substantive piece of evidence. So now, if the FIR is lodged by the accused himself, then it cannot be used for contradicting, corroboration, refreshing memory, as he never appears as a defense witness. Because this bar is because of Article 20, Clause 3 of the Constitution of India. Or he rarely offers himself as a defense witness under Section 315 of CRPC, 315 of CRPC. If FIR is of a confessional nature, meaning that the accused himself is telling whatever he has done, he's providing the information to the police officer. So if FIR is of a confessional nature, then it cannot be proved against the accused, as the same would be hit by Section 25 of the Indian Evidence Act. But if any discovery is made, then it will be relevant under Section 27 of the Indian Evidence Act. If such FIR is of non-confessional nature, it may be admissible in evidence against the accused as an evidence other incriminating facts which are short of confession. It can also be used under Section 8, 6, 9 of Indian Evidence Act. So a question arises when we talk about Indian Evidence Act here, that whether FIR is a presumed document by virtue of Section 80 of Indian Evidence Act. I'm repeating the question. Is FIR a presumed document by virtue of Section 80 Indian Evidence Act? So the answer is it is not. FIR is not a presumed document as per Section 80 of Indian Evidence Act. So now, what if there is delay in lodging FIR? Now, it has to be remembered that law has not fixed any specific time limit for lodging of FIR. Hence, a delayed FIR is not illegal. Of course, a prompt and immediate lodging of FIR is ideal in every case, as it affords commencement of investigation without any time lapse. Secondly, it also rules out the possibility of fabrication. But still, if there is any delay in lodging of FIR, the fact cannot make that particular information illegal. And no police officer can deny lodging that FIR on the ground that it is a long time back information. So, in any case where there is a delay in FIR, the court has to look at the cause of it. And if such cause is not attributable to any effect to fabricate, no consequence shall be attached to such a delay. If the court is satisfied that there is a reasonable delay, there are reasons that can be justified for delay in lodging of FIR, then such FIR is admissible. The delay in itself is no ground to doubt the prosecution case, as it is not always expected from the informant to act mechanically with all the promptitude in giving the report to the police. There are some cases, landmark judgments, in where delay in lodging of FIR is automatically justified. So, what are these cases? Example, in cases of offences against women, particularly rape, held in the case of Harpal Singh versus State of Himachal Pradesh, and also in the cases where relatives of the victims are engaged in providing immediate medical aid to him, as held in the case of State of Rajasthan versus Maharaj Singh. However, if the delay was caused on the part of the police, then what? If the delay was caused on the part of the police, then the court may raise suspicion on the role of the police. If the delay by the police is not well explained, but otherwise case stand on its merits, then it will not affect the merits of the case except that the FIR will lose its evidentiary value. Another type of FIR which you might have heard about is cryptic FIR. What is cryptic FIR? Cryptic FIR in the case of Siddharth Vashisht Ilyas Manu Sharma versus NCT Delhi 2010, which is famously known as Jessica Lal murder case. In that case, it was held that cryptic telephonic message could not be treated as FIR. Cryptic is something which is not clear. So it was held that cryptic telephonic message could not be treated as FIR, as the object of such message is to get the police to the scene of the occurrence and not to register FIR. And since it is cryptic, which means that the police is not able to understand whatever is being told upon over the phone. So obviously, no information can be recorded. The mere fact that the information was just in point of time does not by itself make such statement as FIR. In this case of Jessica Lal case, the Supreme Court emphasized the difference between the information about the commission of a cognizable offense in person at the police station and given on telephone. So there is another landmark judgment case, which is the Tapinder Singh versus State of Punjab. In this case, it was clearly held by the Supreme Court that in the case of telephonic message, if the information discloses the commission of a cognizable offense, then it can be treated as FIR, as it is covered under word otherwise under section 157 of CRPC. There is another case, Superintendent of Police CBI versus Tapan Kumar. It is a case of 2003 Supreme Court. So in this case, it was held that FIR is not an encyclopedia which must disclose all the facts and details. The only requirement that is that it must disclose the commission of a cognizable offense. The purpose of FIR, as we have already talked about, is just to set the criminal law in motion. And thereafter, it becomes the duty of the police to find out each and every detail about the occurrence. But if that police officer omits if that particular but if he omits to state any material fact, example, number of accused, name of accused, then it will raise suspicion in the mind of the court. The object behind the reading of FIR and the signing of FIR as per section 154, the object behind this is to ensure that what has been reduced into writing is true and full version of the information as given by the informant to the police officer or police officer in charge of the station. If not read over to the informant, if the information recorded by the police officer is not read over to the informant, then it is a curable irregularity. Curable irregularity you will find under section 465 of Criminal Procedure Code. So it is curable irregularity. If not signed, then also curable in irregularity under section 465 of CRPC. Curable irregularity means that it can be cured. In the case of MK Antony versus State of Kerala, 2015 Supreme Court. In this case, if the informant refuses to sign the information provided by himself, if the informant refuses to sign that particular information, then it will be an offense under section 180 Indian Penal Code. So, what is zero number FIR? Zero FIR is an FIR which can be filed at any police station, regardless of the place of occurrence of offense or jurisdiction. The same is later transferred to the police station having jurisdiction. Such an FIR is not numbered, so it is known as zero FIR. Every FIR contains a number. It has its own number. So this zero FIR is not numbered. And it is irrespective of the place of occurrence and jurisdiction. For example, a crime takes place at some city in Rajasthan. So the informant goes to the police station, provides the information, and the information is to be recorded there and then by the police station, by the police officer. And then that particular information is to be transferred to the police station which has the jurisdiction. So when it is transferred to that particular station where it has jurisdiction, that police station will provide a number to that FIR. Before giving that number to the FIR already registered is not assigned any number, so it is known as zero number FIR. Also, FIR is a public document as per section 74 of Indian Evidence Act. Like it is made by a public servant while performing his public duty, and certified copy of it can be given by virtue of section 77 of Indian Evidence Act. So there is another type of FIR which is ante-time FIR. Ante-time FIR is whenever from the documents, facts, and circumstances of the case, it is found that FIR was lodged before the incident took place, then such FIR is known as ante-time FIR or fake FIR. Multiple and cross FIR. A cross FIR is a set of FIR filed by the opposite party in the same case. And in such a case, FIR being more than one in number is also a case of multiple FIR. Example, in an offense of affray, as per section 159 of Indian Penal Code, A and B lodged FIR against each other. So it becomes a cross FIR and a multiple FIR as well. A multiple FIR is a situation in which there is more than one FIR in respect of the same offense. It can be by one party or by the opposite parties. If in such a case, police take up an independent investigation. Police take up an independent investigation on each FIR. It will amount to the excessive hardship to the accused, and therefore, in such a case, accused may apply to the High Court uh, under Section 482 for quashing of the other FIRs. If the first FIR satisfy the requirement of Section 154, then there is no need to lodge other FIRs, as held in the case of TT Anthony versus State of Kerala 2000. So that's all for FIR. Please do like and subscribe this channel, and if there is any doubt regarding FIR, you can leave it in the comments and the same will be answered. Thank you.